You were part of that conference call. What really stood out? What kind of struck you as far as Kevin Stefanski talking with the media?
Well, first, he confirmed what we all were wondering. Is he working remotely like the rest of the league and where that may be? And turns out, much like myself, he's back in the beautiful state of Minnesota. Unlike him, though, I'm not trying to run an NFL football team for the first time. And I can't imagine the challenges he's facing right now. These teams are having virtual meetings, virtual draft meetings, offensive game planning meetings, all virtually. And look, we're all adjusting to life on Zoom now, if you will. But you can't replicate getting in an office, talking X's and O's, talking players, talking draft boards, and just being in the facility, creating a culture that the Browns are trying to find. So that really stood out for me at first. And going forward, we're going to have to see how this team adjusts because, like you said, the rest of the league is dealing with this, even though I think there's a clear disadvantage to the newer head coaches, even though he's trying to, project the right thing, saying we're going along as scheduled. But the hardships must be just immense as a first-year head coach in Kevin Stefanski.
And just as a point of reference, the NFL allows teams with first-year head coaches to have an extra mini camp and those kind of things where they can get in and do some things. The thing that really struck me, he talked a lot about players that they've signed that fit the scheme. And I think that was kind of good to hear. Several times you heard that.
Yeah, again, and it confirms something we've been talking about with the signing of Austin Hooper. He said this is a guy who checked all the boxes, and that's exactly the situation they ran into with adding Hooper. Look, they paid $11 million a year for a guy who really can't win in man coverage and isn't Travis Kelce or George Kittle or Zach Ertz, but that's okay because he does what Stefanski needs to do in running zone concepts and getting open in space. He plays well without the ball. That's a basketball term, but we can use it in football with Austin Hooper, I think. And it makes sense that they landed him because if you look at the draft, it's a weaker drafted tight end. So in order to do what they wanted to do, they had to land Hooper. So again, this conference call confirms some things that we've been talking about when it comes to the signings, whether it's Hooper or Conklin or Case Keenum. They fit what he's trying to do.
The other thing that he made pretty clear is a big supporter, big believer in Baker Mayfield. That was pretty clear. That several times he made that point.
Yeah, and it really puts to bed any sort of argument or debate that this was going to be. The Bears just came out today and said that their quarterback competition is open between Nick Foles and Mr. Trubisky. There's going to be the complete opposite of that in Cleveland now with Case Keenum and Baker Mayfield. And Stefanski put that to bed as he should. It was the mature and right signing to make rather than a Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota that could turn things up here. And perhaps one of those guys played well and you could flip him for a draft pick in the preseason or something like that, similar to what the Eagles did with Sam Bradford in the Carson Wentz situation a few years ago for the Vikings. Kevin Stefanski knows all about that. But instead they grabbed Case Keenum to reassure Baker this is your gig. And until Baker does something to lose it, he's going to be set up to succeed here.
Also, Kevin Stefanski, pretty significant praise for Case Keenum. Made the point that definitely wanted to get Case Keenum is kind of more of a steadying influence. And again, Case Keenum's got to come in and if they need him to win a game, he can win a game, he can win a couple of games. But he wants that approach and that steady pro hand to be in that quarterback room as well.
Yeah, it's really a huge contrast to the quarterback room that they had last year. They wanted to come in and really revamp this thing, and they've done that. He spoke very highly of Case Keenum, as he should. They've got a connection from Minnesota, and he was a proven winner that year. And then he hopped around for a few different teams, and now he's back with a coordinator he's used to. And it gives Baker Mayfield a leader in the room, even though Case Keenum has said, he's not there to coach. Naturally, when you get around the guys, whenever that may be, you're just going to talk football. And he's going to be able to teach Baker some things that he wasn't picking up earlier in his career. Baker's had a lot of turnover. That's no secret. I don't need to tell anyone that. But to come in and have a consistent veteran leader like Case Keenum, you're not going to see it, on game day because hopefully what Case has taught Baker, he'll just be showing it. But Keenum's going to be the silent guy on the sidelines, making his moves and his movements in practice in the meeting rooms. And that's where he's going to pay off the most, assuming he doesn't have to get on the field.
The flip side of it that may get overlooked as well, especially with this compressed area where Baker Mayfield won't have as much time as he normally would with Kevin Stefanski's offense. he's got a guy that can answer pretty much any question that he would have about what Kevin Stefanski wants in that quarterback room with him, which I think is a huge it's a huge asset given the times that they're going to be dealing with.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It might be a sneaky reason why this is an even better signing than we think. Case Keenum's going to now turn into an extension of the head coach. And in this virtual world we're living in at these meetings, you're going to need even more instruction because Kevin Stefanski can only do so much remotely, as we said. And I want to give a little pushback at the top where Kevin said that, every team's dealing with this. And he is right about that. But let's be clear, like you said, with the first year head coach mini camps, and things they're going to miss out on. Teams that have continuity within their staffs, you think of the Kansas City Chiefs, the Green Bay Packers, the 49ers, and for the most part, the Patriots, despite losing Tom Brady, teams like that who have familiarity within their program, this is going to be easier to navigate for them just because they're going to come back and probably run a lot of the same stuff they did last year because they didn't have time to build on anything. Where you have a team like the Browns, obviously, who are trying to completely revamp everything. I think it is going to put Cleveland at a slight disadvantage. So though the whole league is dealing with this, it gives teams with a similar staff an advantage. But again, like you said, that's why Case Keenum becomes even more valuable in becoming an extension of head coach, which I'm sure he's serving, whether it's through virtual meetings or when they're eventually able to sit down in person.